Hey everybody, welcome back. Today we're going to be doing our product review for the Ninja Double Stack XL Air Fryer. Is this something that you need to upgrade to? Well, watch this video and find out. So you ready? Let's get into this. Just a quick note, my reviews are based upon the things that I think are important. That might be a little bit different for you, so what I recommend doing is after watching this video, you watch some other videos made from different content creators. That way you get a wider range of praises and concerns that'll help you make a much more informed buying decision, and that is the most important thing of all. This is the Ninja Double Stack XL. The first thing you're going to notice is that Ninja's gone from having their baskets side by side to stacking them up on top of each other. By doing this, they managed to reduce the amount of counter space that the air fryer takes up, while at the same time using up all that remaining space below your upper cabinets. Most upper cabinets are mounted anywhere between 17 and 18 inches above your countertop, and the height on this machine comes in just below 15 inches. So that means you shouldn't have any problem fitting this guy right here underneath your cabinets. In addition to that height being 15 inches tall, the depth on this is actually pretty interesting because you've got a big piece that sticks out off the back, plus your handles. So you're looking at 18.5 inches from the very back of the machine to the front of the handles here. As reference, most countertops are about 26 inches deep. So this is about how this is going to look on your countertop if it's pushed all the way back against the wall. Pretty decent amount of space, but not tons. As far as width goes, you have to take this little control pod here into account as well. So you're talking about 11.5 inches wide for the entire machine. It's not too bad. If you look around the back of the machine here, you can see how much this back section actually sticks out. This is part of the reason it sits so far off the wall. You've also got a couple of nubs down here that are designed to bump up against the wall so you keep a little bit of clearance. That way you get proper air circulation. If we look all the way around the other side of the machine here, these are actually the main vents for the machine. So it exhausts everything out of the right side of the machine, not really out of the back so much. That means that whenever you're setting this up on your countertop, you got to be sure that you're not putting anything to the right hand side of it to block those vents off. Not sure why those really have to be vented sideways like that. I thought that was a little bit bizarre, but it could have something to do with the way they had to design the airflow for this thing, which we'll get into in a minute. You've got two identical baskets in this machine, which we'll go ahead and pull out now. And in each one of these, you have several components. First, you got a wire rack. That can either go into the machine this way, where these pieces act as handles, or this can be flipped over that way, where these act as feet. You would use those differently depending on what you're cooking inside your pan. In addition to this, you have a non-stick crisper plate that sits in the bottom. You can see that this sticks up just a little bit, so when this is in the bottom of the pan, it keeps your food up just a little bit so you're not sitting in fluid. This can either go all the way down in the bottom of the pan, just like that, or it could be set on a second level. If you look at the inside of the pan here, you got these nubs here for the bottom and upper level. Got those over here as well. The way we would utilize that would be to take out the crisper plate, and then we would spin it around 180 degrees like that. Now you can see these rubber nubs up here, and on the front, will line up with those nubs inside the pan, so I can slide this down, and now it just sits up on the upper shelf. That's designed to help your proteins cook a little bit faster and more evenly. You can see that you have the mesh on the back of the pan here. And that's because if you look in the machine, you can see that the heating elements and the fans are in the back and they blow forward. Most air fryers have those heating elements on the top and they blow downward. If you look at the top of each compartment, you can see that there's channels up in here that help redirect air all the way around through the machine to get a little bit better circulation. The point of having that air blow forward is that if you're using the crisper plate here with a protein on this upper tray, you're going to see that you're going to get really good airflow above and below your meat. That should help it cook a lot more evenly and a lot faster as well. When cooking in this thing, you can cook with just the crisper plate in the bottom. You can cook with the crisper plate in the top position. You could also cook with the plate in the bottom and the rack up top like this. And that way you would have a maximum of 4 different things you can cook at the same time. Meaning that since you have 2 compartments, you can cook 1 layer down on your crisper plates on both compartments, and another layer up on top of the wire racks on both compartments as well. Anyway, we'll move on to checking out some of the features on this. Turning on the machine, we have a lot of different things that we can do. The first thing you're presented with is a blinking 1 and 2. 1 is for zone 1, which is the top compartment. 2 is for zone 2, which is the bottom compartment. You can cook in both of these zones together, cook in one or the other individually, or you can cook different parts of the same meal in different compartments and set the machine up so they'll finish at the same time. I'll go into zone 1 so I can show you the different features. You can air fry, air broil, bake, roast, reheat, and dehydrate in this machine. And the way you would use that is very simple. I selected the 1, so that means I'm working with this zone up here. But if I were to select zone 2, then that would mean I'd be working with this one down here. But we'll go back to 1. After you select your zone, you would use this dial to pick what you want to do. In this case, we'll just say we're going to air fry. Once you've made your selection, you'd have your default settings sitting up here blinking. You can see the temperature set to 390 and it's set for 20 minutes. Right here, I can change the temperature and the time. So if I were to hit temp right here, now this dial will change the temperature. So maybe we'll leave that at 400. Then I can change the time, use the dial again, and let's say we're gonna go for 10 minutes, okay? Now at this point, I could just hit the start button and the machine would start up just using zone 1 and we'd be all good. But let's say I wanted to put something else down here in the bottom. Well, now since I have our air fry set up, I would select zone 2, and let's say we're gonna put some fish in the bottom one and we wanted to roast it. Well, we would select roast for zone 2, because you can see zone 2 is blinking. And on roast, the temperature and time defaults are blinking again, which are different than the air fry. Well, now we'll go on our temperature. Maybe we'll say we want to go to 360 degrees, and we want to set the time to, let's say, 20 minutes. Well, now in this case, we have zone 1 and zone 2 both set since I didn't start it up before. So if I were to hit start right now, both sections would start immediately, and the air fry would get done 10 minutes sooner because that was set to 10 minutes and this is set to 20 minutes. That might not be ideal for you because you probably want everything to be done at the same time. So all you would have to do at this point would be to hit this button right here that says Smart Finish, which I can press right now, and you can see that lit up. Now when I start the machine, you'll see that it has started my roast here from 20 minutes. But I got the word hold up here in the air fry section because this is only going to go for 10 minutes. This will continue to cook all the way down until this hits 10 minutes, and then it'll automatically turn on the air fryer portion so they finish at the same time. Well, let's say I was cooking some chicken fingers and french fries in an upper and lower section here in zone 1 with that wire rack. And then down here, I maybe had some string beans down below and some chicken breasts up above. Well, in that case, the machine's going to need to use a lot more power because it's going to have to push that air through multiple layers. Well, in this case, the first thing we would do would be to hit the double stack pro button, just to tell the machine that we're doing something like that. Then maybe I'll select zone 1 and leave that on air fry, and we'll just leave it at the default settings. Go down to zone 2, and in that case, we were going to air broil them, we'll just say, at maybe 375 degrees for 18 minutes, we'll just say, hypothetically. Again, we have mixed match times. So in this case, I go ahead and do the Smart Finish again. You don't really have to do that, but I do it to make sure that everything gets done at the same time. And you can see that now I got the double stack thing lit up and the Smart Finish thing lit up also. And now when I start up, the bottom section is on hold because the top section is running more time again. Same thing as what I just showed you, except now the machine is going to be blowing a lot more air because it knows we have multiple layers in the top and multiple layers in the bottom. The match cook function is designed to be more of a time saver. What you'd use that for is if you're doing the same thing in the upper and lower section and you don't want to have to program it twice, because what would be the point of that? So you would just start off by hitting match cook. You'll see that 1 and 2 are both blinking. So whatever I set this to is going to affect both sections. So if I were to put roast, that means zone 1 and zone 2 are both gonna roast. Then I set my temperature and my time. Let's leave it at 15 minutes. And when I start, you only see one section here with time and temperature because both zones are running the same time and temperature and obviously are going to finish at the same time as well. One thing about this machine that's really easy to overlook that a lot of people don't realize is that just because you have two different zones doesn't mean that you can cook in both zones at the same time without a penalty. For instance, let's say I wanted to cook some French fries here in zone 1. If I was going to cook those all by themselves up here and I was just making a smaller portion, it would take something like 20 or 25 minutes to cook up here by itself, no problem. However, if I wanted to make more and use both compartments at the same time, that time would get bumped up to something like 40 to 45 minutes. That's a far cry from 25 minutes. It's almost double the time using both compartments at the same time. It's a time saving over having to do one batch and then a second batch in one compartment, but not as big of a time saver as you'd think. And if you didn't know that's how this machine works, you're gonna end up undercooking stuff constantly. I don't know exactly why that is. I suspect that if you're using one section that you're still getting the power from both fans in the back, and therefore it's just routing all that extra air up top and into the top basket. That would make sense because if that's true and you decided to go dual zone and use both sections, then you'd effectively only have half the power since now you got one fan blowing into each of your zones. Therefore, it would end up taking about twice as long, which is what the dual zone times say. If there's ever any confusion about that, you do have a little sticker here on the top of the machine that shows you the difference in times between single zone and dual zone with different types of food. As far as noise goes, we're going to use the sound meter on my phone and I'm going to show you the noise difference between running one compartment versus running both compartments. And I'm just going to air fry with the default settings in zone 1. Okay, that looks like it hit about 68, 69 decibels there before I started talking. And now we are going to do the same thing with both the zones. Well, a little louder, it got up to 72 decibels. If you're standing here next to the machine, it is quite a bit louder with both sections going. But to be honest, 72 decibels really isn't all that bad at all. Hey, by the way, if this is your first time here and you want to learn some cool new recipes, get some great cooking tips and tricks and all sorts of other kitchen related things, then start now by subscribing to the channel and clicking the notification bell so you never miss a thing. To test out the air fryer, I did 5 different things. First, I used the dehydrate function to make beef jerky. With that beef jerky, I put a layer down on the crisper plate and then I put the metal rack in and put a second layer of meat on the metal rack. I duplicated that in zone 2 to give me 4 separate layers of meat. The dehydrate function defaults to 150 degrees in 6 hours. I didn't leave it at 6 hours because I typically like beef jerky pretty dry, so I cranked that up to 9 hours. I did check the meat after 6 hours and it was still really good, but it was still a lot juicier than I like. Definitely that would be good enough for most people. I did my final checks right at the 9-hour mark and I was actually really pleasantly surprised. All 4 layers were nice and dry just the way I like them. There were a couple of pieces that looked a little bit weird because I didn't trim the fat quite as good, but that's on me, that's not on the machine. But in essence, it did a really great job, and since I was able to do 4 layers, that's actually quite a bit of beef jerky I was able to make all at one time. For my second test, I did a double air fry. In one section, I air fried a bunch of frozen chicken fingers, and in zone 2, I air fried an entire bag of frozen tater tots. The default time and temperature that the machine showed for both my fingers and tots were much lower than what the bag says. So at the very least, I had to bump all that stuff up to match what it says on the package. But remember what I was talking about before with running a dual zone, you have to crank all that time up even more. In any case, I went ahead and just left those at the package settings to see exactly what would happen. At the end of the initial air fry, the chicken fingers were still cooked all the way through and they were nice and crunchy. My entire tray of fingers were cooked all the way, even though I didn't account for the dual zone times. As far as the tater tots go, you have to take the basket out of the machine and shake that a couple times during the air fry. That's just part of the air frying process though, and it's just to make sure that you toss all your stuff around in there and make sure everything cooks evenly. That's not really a knock on this particular air fryer. That's pretty much every air fryer on the market. Because remember, you're not submerging the stuff in oil, you are cooking it with moving air. If the air can't get to the surface, then it's not going to cook it. So therefore, you've got to stir your contents or at least shake it up every so often. In any case, the package time was nowhere near enough time. I actually had to double that time up and crank the temperature up a little bit more in order to get that to cook. So in actual time, the tater tots took about 40 minutes to get completed. At the end of the day, it did a good job, but the time was a lot more than you would think it would be, and I did have to toss those tots 2 or 3 times. For my next test, I roasted 2 whole chickens, 1 in each zone, obviously. This time I used the dual zone timing, and I estimated that it was going to take about 1 hour and 15 minutes to cook the 2 chickens. And all I did to the chicken was brush it with a little bit of oil and throw some herbs on top. After the hour and 15 minutes had gone by, here is the results on the 2 chickens. You can see that they're cooked almost perfect. The tops are a little bit dark, but I wouldn't say they're dark enough to be considered burned. But the internal temperature of both chickens was spot on. Keep in mind that the way I oriented the chickens in the air fryer was to put the breast portions facing backwards. That would put the breast closest to where the fan is pushing the air out. That's the area that needs to be cooked the most, so I figured that was the area that I wanted to make sure got proper circulation. That being said, not only was the breast cooked well, but the wings, the drumsticks, and the thighs were all perfectly cooked. For my next test, I roasted some salmon and air fried some asparagus together. In the compartment for the salmon, I took the crisper plate and put it in the upper position. That way I can make sure that enough air got underneath it to cook the skins properly, and enough air would get over the top of it to make it nice and crunchy. In zone 2, I oiled and seasoned some asparagus and put the crisper plate in the bottom. Zone 1 was set to roast, and zone 2 was set to air fry, and I used Smart Finish to make sure that they both got done at the same time. One time I did pause the cook and open up zone 2 where the asparagus is air frying and use some tongs to redistribute the asparagus around in the basket. When the time ran out, the results on this test were really good as well. The asparagus was nice and crunchy, but I wouldn't call it air fried asparagus. It tasted more like sauteed asparagus. Also, it probably could have been cooked a tiny bit more, but it was still really good, so I just kind of left it the way it was. The salmon had a nice crunchy skin and a great crust on it as well. All 4 of the portions of salmon that I had in that upper compartment cooked exactly the same as well. I cut into each one of them just to make sure, and I didn't have any little undercooked spots or anything, so I was really happy with that. In fact, I was kind of expecting the portions near the front of the air fryer not to cook quite as much, but I ended up being wrong and I was pleasantly surprised. For the last test, I tried to do something that Ninja didn't specifically say I can do or can't do, but I thought it would be a really great test just to see exactly how even this thing can cook. So I took a package of 10 fresh hamburger patties. I put the crisper plates in the bottom of both baskets, oiled and seasoned all my burger patties, and I put 2 down on the crisper plate in each basket. Then I installed the wire racks and put 3 burger patties onto each one of those. So in total, I had 6 burgers on the wire racks and 4 burgers on the actual crisper plates. Then I turned on the Double Stack Pro setting and I set all the burgers to air fry for a little bit over 30 minutes. Honestly, I wasn't really expecting all that much from this test, and if I was going to get some uneven cooking, this was definitely where it's going to be. When the cook got done, I opened up the Ninja Double Stack, and you can see they all look the exact same color. They all shrivel up quite a bit, but that's what happens when you use 80% lean beef. But I took all of them out of the machine and made a note of where each one of those came from and cut into every burger patty. You can see that every single one of these things is cooked through nice and even. I did have a little bit of a hiccup with this though. I added some cheese onto the burger patties and put a few of them back into the machine. And I did notice that zone 1 melted that cheese a lot quicker than zone 2 did. So there is a little bit of a discrepancy between temperatures in zone 1 and zone 2, but how much of a problem that really is just dependent upon how you feel about that. The Ninja Double Stack XL Air Fryer has actually gotten quite a few negative reviews online so far. I didn't check a lot of those out because I wanted my review to be based totally upon my experiences. As far as my testing goes, I really did find a lot of things that I really do like about Ninja's new machine. However, I still recommend you watch a couple of other videos just to make sure you get a really full picture of what this machine is. If you'd like a little bit more information about the Ninja Double Stack XL air fryer, I do have an Amazon affiliate link to it down in the description of the video. If you buy anything through those links, I do make a small commission, but it doesn't change the price that you pay, 1 cent. If you like this video, you might like this video right here where I showed you how to use this exact air fryer to make some really great roasted salmon and air fried asparagus. That came out really delicious, and if you're a salmon fan, you're really gonna love it. Well, that's it for now. I hope to see you back again here really soon, and until that time, I'm Joe, and I hope you have a phenomenal day. Take it easy.